Hello and welcome. It's Wake Up Wednesday because why not have an extra episode? And this one is a really special one, you guys. I, at CrimeCon, meet a lot of people and a lot of people touch my heart. And this lady that you're going to hear from today, actually these two women, came to my booth and they had a story and Joanne is the mother, and Anna is the family advocate that you're going to hear from today. But Joanne came to my table and she is looking for her missing daughter. We cried together. We laughed together. She really is a special person, and I asked her to come on to the podcast because, she is seeking justice for her daughter, Allie. And the more eyeballs, the more ears we get on this story, the better chances of her to find justice. So this is a missing persons case. And I just thought I wanted to give Joanna a platform. More than going and searching, she is an incredible mother and lady. And so I just wanted to tell you before we get into talking to Joanne and Anna, I would like to tell you a little bit about Allie's case. On April 26, 2010, Miss Joanne's 16-year-old daughter, Alexandria, who went by Allie Joy Lowitzer, disappeared after getting off of her school bus. Or actually, I don't know if it was a school bus. We'll talk to her about that, or if it was just a city bus. But I think it was a school bus. It was dropping her off right in Spring, Texas. I mean, very, very close to her house. Now, she was going to walk to the Burger Barn, which is like this little place to have a burger in a strip mall. That's where she worked. It was about a quarter mile down the road. It was wooded, and she never made it to her work. What we know is what we're going to hear from Allie's mom. I want her to kind of, and Anna, explain what exactly happened. They know it best. They live it. She lives it every single day. And there are some intricacies to this case that make her and I feel like it is solvable. And so I want to welcome Anna and Miss Joanne to the podcast to talk about missing Allie Lowitzer. On April 26, 2010, 16-year-old Alexandria, who went by Allie Joy Lowitzer, disappeared after getting off of her school bus near her home in Spring, Texas. She planned to pick up a shift at her job at Burger Barn, which is just kind of like a little burger joint in a strip mall. It was a short walk, quarter mile down a wooded road that opened up to, like I said, the strip mall. Allie had only worked there a few weeks and actually already had problems with her paycheck, which her dad, John, helped her fix. The bus intersected at the corner of Old Pike and Naughty Post Lane, and that is the last known location of Allie. 3 witnesses made statements of Allie's last location, 2 bus riders and 1 neighbor. However, after a few unanswered texts, and when Allie did not arrive home after her shift should have ended, Joanne, her mother, went to Allie's place of employment, the Burger Barn, and it had actually closed early. Joanne quickly realized as she pulled up that the restaurant was dark, chairs were up, everything was closed for the night, and no one was in sight. Of course, Joanne called Allie's friends and then her ex-husband, Allie's father, John, and Allie never came home that night, and no one has ever seen her again. Despite hopeful thinking, Joanne decided to call Precinct 4 in Harris County to report Allie missing just before midnight on April 26, 2010. Initially, an officer arrived took some notes, inspected Allie's bedroom where cash, makeup, which Allie just loved makeup, her phone charger, other personal items, all were still in her room. Police told Joanne, "Hey, let us know when Allie gets home." And Joanne replied, "But what if she doesn't come home?" Joanne luckily found Laura Recovery Center, who helped Joanne navigate the first few days and weeks a search and rescue advocacy. Joanne luckily found the Laura Recovery Center, who helped Joanne navigate the first few days and weeks of search and rescue. This is actually a search and rescue advocacy group founded by the father of a murdered Houston teen. But Harris County, Allie was just classified as a runaway. And their approach, we're going to get into it, was less than ideal, I will say. During the investigation, police did question certain students who were close to Allie, but never conducted ground searches over the following days and weeks, leaving the Lowitzers, pretty much baffled. Luckily, with the help of the Laura Recovery Center, ground searches did go on for several weeks, but her phone, backpack, clothing, and let alone Allie, never has been found. And so now I want to talk to Allie's mom, Joanne, her biggest advocate. And I also have a family advocate with me, Anna, who I both met at CrimeCon, and you guys both touched my heart so much that I am so happy to have you here. And I cannot wait to get into Allie's case, because I think, like we've said before, I think there are answers to be had. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, so let's get into Precinct 4 held Allie's case for 10 days before transferring it to Harris County Runaway Division, correct?
Yes, around 10 days.
Okay. And then Harris County homicide after Allie never came home.
Right. So it went from Precinct 4, and then they escalated it to Harris County Runaway Division. They had it for a short time, and me and John, we still felt like there could be more that could be done, and was asking, is there anything else that can be done more? So that's when they called in the Harris County Homicide to come and help.
And at that point, did they come and help on foot too? Or was this just the Laura Recovery Center that was searching for Allie?
As far as like the ground searches, it was just the volunteers with the Laura Recovery Center.
So it sounds to me like Harris County did not take this case. They took it as a runaway, and then they kind of just dropped the ball.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely a struggle. Just getting anyone's attention, really. She was classified as a runaway, I believe, just because of her age and the way she looked in her photographs. Allie.
Okay, so let's get into that really quick. So,
okay.
Allie, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see very cute girl, loved makeup, a little alternative. So I'm thinking that's probably where they're thinking, oh, she's a runaway because she has dark eyeliner on. Oops. And, but that dark eyeliner really makes her eyes stick out. So I'm here for it.
Gorgeous. I was an alternative kid in the early 2000s as well. And I feel like Allie, her friend group has remained such strong advocates. Like anybody that knew Allie was willing to talk to us as we kind of go into the investigation. But they just listened to the same type of music. YouTube was rolling out during this time. So I feel like I have a personal kind of connection to Allie. We loved the same music, and I know we're going to kind of get into who Allie was as a person, but she loved like Green Day and the Gorillaz and Fall Out Boy and all of those great bands that we kind of all grew up on, you know?
Yeah, I love those bands too. So
they're still to this day solid. One thing I do want to touch, because this was really confusing when I started advocating and doing some investigation down in Spring, is how Harris County is set up, and when it's probably hard for some audience members to follow the narrative that Miss Jo is stating. So Harris County is split into several precincts because of how large it is.
Okay, I was wondering that too.
Okay, so Precinct 4 is going to cover the North Houston area, including like Spring, Conroe, all the way up until you hit Montgomery County, which then is not Harris County anymore. But because Harris County is one of the largest counties, not just in Texas, but in the United States, isn't it? Like per cap, how many people and the amount of, like I said, population and geographic area it covers. So that's why when she says Harris County, you know, you'd normally just be like Dallas County or whatever. It's one kind of unit, whereas Harris County is split up into 4, correct? It is 4 total precincts.
There may be more now.
I was going to say there might be like 5 as you get down into Galveston now. I feel like they've developed another precinct.
Yeah.
So just the how massive Harris County is geographically, population-wise, and just where it sits in that heavily wooded kind of Everglade area makes ground search extremely difficult. Harris County, in my opinion, didn't have the resources to go through with that. But with the Laura Recovery Center, and I'd like Ms. Jo to say this, that was founded actually out of, another, as we said, another murdered teen's father started the Laura Recovery Center. And that's who really helped Ms. Jo. So I always like to give a big shout out to them.
Yes. And how did you find them?
I found them actually through our local Girl Scout council. So Allie was a Girl Scout and I was a co-leader. And that night that the first night that we didn't know where she was, I posted on Facebook that we didn't know where Allie was. And into the next day, you know, I posted that she didn't come home. We still don't know where she is. And then someone at the Girl Scout Council that I knew suggested the Laura Recovery Center. And I had never heard of them before. And so their story is their daughter, Laura Smither, she went out for a jog. She was an athlete. She was a young teenager. I can't remember the exact age. And she went out before breakfast and never made it home. And she was the victim of a homicide.
Wow. And they eventually found her, I'm assuming.
They did, yes.
Yeah. And then thankfully her dad started this foundation because I'm sure you're not the only one that they have, you know, helped at this point. And far too often we hear that, you know, they think it's a runaway situation. And a lot of times it is, right? I mean, I had an instance with my own daughter recently, within this year, that she just took off with her boyfriend, without telling me. And she left her phone at home, and I had no idea where she was. And so I called the police, and I mean, I was just beside myself, you know. So I can imagine when she doesn't come home, you in your mom heart, you know, that there's something wrong. Like, this was not Allie to just not call you, not come home, but the investigators are not listening to you.
No, they didn't listen.
And I was going to say, it's not like she just didn't call Miss Jo. Obviously the family, it took them a little bit to find this out, but no other text messages or calls were ever placed on Allie's cell phone after she got off the bus that day. So
Right. And there was
Allie
no
didn't communicate with anybody after getting off the bus. Like if she's going to
Right.
run away or, stay at a friend's overnight, like you said, teenagers do. There was a few times I stayed out past my curfew and got in trouble. But like I said, no one is hearing from Allie. You know what I mean? No friends, her boyfriend even. I believe Miss Joe and John in the next 24 to 48 hours started hearing back from friends that they had approached saying, well, we haven't even heard from her. A text message. And I think probably for Miss Joe, that's when the alarm, like that's probably when this went from, ooh, this makes me feel uncomfortable to, like you said, the mom gut of this, something's absolutely not right here.
Right. I knew that night. I felt something inside that something was wrong, but I couldn't convince anybody else, about the same feeling, until a couple of days went by. I think even John was looking at the bright side and, trying to convince me that everything was going to be okay and that she was probably with a friend.
But of course, you guys don't have her phone records back yet, so you don't know if she is or is not communicating with anybody right now. But as far as you guys questioning friends, nobody had heard from her.
Correct.
And Miss Joe, when you called her, her phone just went straight to voicemail, I'm assuming.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, I texted and called several times before it was time for her to get off and, hadn't heard from her. And then, that's when my red flags started coming up. And then that's what prompted me to just drive down, to the Burger Barn and, see what was going on.
Yeah.
To discover it was closed.
And
let's talk
I was
a
able
little
to
bit.
talk
Yeah.
to some of the people, but
go ahead.
Yeah, I was able to talk to, so last July, we really started digging into Allie's case and re-interviewing some of Allie's friends and stuff again to see if we could maybe come up with something that people hadn't in the last 15 years. And when I talked to people at the Burger Barn that worked there the day Allie went missing, what I was told was that because they were short-staffed and Allie's paycheck was to be picked up, like the manager had told another employee, if Allie comes, here's her paycheck, da-da-da-da-da. Well, Allie never showed up. She never picks that paycheck up from her job, and they closed early by all accounts because they were understaffed that night, is the answer I got.
Was Allie really scheduled that night? Do we know that?
She was not. And it was really weird, the way that the owner ran the place. So, her first 2 checks bounced. And that's why John had to go down there and get that straightened out, because when you try to deposit a check and it bounces, the bank charges you fees.
Yeah.
So John had to, get him to pay Allie in cash plus cover the fees. And then there was no set schedule. Allie had to call every single day to see if they needed her to come in and work. And then after Allie went missing, we kind of put 2 and 2 together. They were paying her waitress wages. All the girls were being paid waitress wages.
So if you don't know, in Texas, because it's different in California, you get paid minimum wage no matter if you're a waitress or you're not. But in Texas, and still to this day, your wage is way under minimum wage.
Right.
So, she's getting paid, basically pennies on the dollar at this point if they're doing that. So that's a little
just
shaky.
The girls.
And
just the girls, not the boys.
Really
that's awesome.
And they're getting not really tipped because they were making burgers in the back. Like it wasn't as much as a sit down service where you would like tip your waitress out. It was you went up to the counter and ordered, like at a Whataburger or
and
whatever, McDonald's.
I mean,
and
nowadays
then you
they
take it back
tip,
to your
but
house.
now you would get tips. Before, no way.
No
That
way.
wasn't a thing.
And trust me, there's been a lot of red flags about Burger Barn that we have looked into. Although at this time, we cannot find a solid connection between Allie's disappearance and Burger Barn, even though I don't think he was running his business properly.
He wasn't.
I don't, and Miss Joe will probably agree, I don't believe that Burger Barn was responsible for Allie's disappearance. I don't think she ever made it there that day.
Yeah, there was a lot of sketchy things about how he was running his business, and law enforcement assured me that they did their due diligence and cleared the owner of the Burger Barn.
Well, he ends up shutting down the restaurant. But again, whenever you kind of talk to some of the people that worked there at that time and that worked with Allie, it's not good for business because Allie's story, due to Miss Joe's advocacy, within the next weeks and months will blow up in Spring, Texas. And honestly, I think that the bad media attention probably forced him to close a burger joint that wasn't really doing that well financially.
It wasn't,
yeah.
Yeah,
that's what we speculate. Yeah.
We speculate, yes.
Yeah.
So when she's supposed to walk, and she's supposed to walk by a gas station or something that has CCTV footage, correct?
Right. So at the intersection of Cypresswood and Treshwig, there was one gas station that had surveillance. And we would have seen her walk across the very top edge of the surveillance video. And John went down there, very nice people, and they let him watch the entire video. And he didn't see Allie walk across the screen at any time. And they even burned him a copy of it so that, it can be reviewed again, and then give it to law enforcement. And then law enforcement lost it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. You've got
the Harris County Runaway Division, they lost it.
Because
Here,
you would
drew
think,
like a little map just so people on audio. So like if Allie had gotten off the bus about here, which it makes a kind of a T shape as you come into the neighborhood, that's where they drop kids off. Allie would have walked over to her street and walked down the street. However, because she's going, actually she would have walked this way up to y'all's house. She should have gone.
Oh, yeah. To my house.
If she was going home, she should have gone this way. But since she was walking to work, she goes this way. And then as she leaves the neighborhood, she's going to take a right-hand turn. And there's this little two-way highway. And all of this is like major forest. And there's even like a drainage ditch down here. And there are no sidewalks. No sidewalks. It's so unsafe to walk right here. And then right here at this intersection, which is where she should have gotten picked up by CCTV, these are major, like Miss Joe was saying, these are major intersections. And there's just no safe walking in this area when you go follow Allie's footsteps that day,
Yeah, if you're looking down both sides of the street, you can tell that there's like a little trail in the grass where people walk.
I mean, I would be scared to walk that as an adult because you have like this much room between cars going 50 and then falling in like a mosquito ditch or like, this watery, stagnant water. So and we talked to a lot of people, a lot of students at this time that took this walk, and a lot of them had one woman was almost kidnapped right there off that major road, so even though the road it's kind of back it's a very busy road, and it's kind of back in this forested area though, And we had a
Okay.
lot of girls state that when they were walking, they'd get catcalled, men would pull over. And I talked to 2 women in this direct area that were attempted kidnapped. Like, one was going out to check the mail and she almost got pulled into a car, and another girl that was walking on this exact same stretch that Allie should have been, a man pulled over and tried to pull her into the car.
Wow. That is scary. Okay.
And this
So
happened after Allie, so the police didn't know
Oh,
about this when Allie disappears. You know what I mean?
wow. Yeah. And Harris County never entered Allie's name into CODIS, correct? And
They
still
did
to
not.
this day?
Right. Well, she is there. She's in it now. So the story behind that was, and this was a couple of years into her disappearance, we got tips that led us to Ohio. And the private investigator that we had at the time, she basically talked her way into, they call them brothels up there. So basically a trap house, because the rumor was that Allie was in one of these trap houses, and in order to get into one, you had to, either want to buy drugs or girls. And so the private investigator, she talked her way into this house, and she had never met Allie before.
Yeah.
And, to look at Allie's photos, I mean, there's a lot of other young girls that look like Allie. And the private investigator, she said that she thought that she had seen Allie in one of the bedrooms on a mattress. And we contacted the local authorities in Ohio, and it was a little bit before they could arrange a raid on this house. It was a couple of months, actually. And, we let the homicide department here know what was going on. And if Allie had been in that house and they had arrested her, they would not have been able to legally detain her as a missing juvenile, because she was not in that system. So that's how that works. And we basically had to call them and beg them and get real ugly with them to put her in the system.
I mean, that is absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And how many years was it before you guys figured this out?
Figured what out?
That she hadn't been put into CODIS?
It was probably about 2 years.
So any tips or anything that could have come back to her, like we're missing a 2-year gap. That
Right.
good information could have come in those 2 years that would have definitely fallen through the cracks because they didn't have her in the system, in the CODIS system.
Right. And it's only law enforcement that can enter a person into CODIS.
So my question is, again, we know Harris County just doesn't have the resources, but do they really believe she's a runaway, or do they really believe she's no longer here? You know what I mean? Like, they won't even give the family a foundation to, it's so
I mean,
messy.
at this point, it's 2 years in. Let's talk about Allie for a second. So she was 16 years old. She, by all accounts, I mean, she is a typical teenager, a typical teenage girl. She loves makeup. She was into softball choir. I mean, tell me a little bit about her.
Well, yeah, she did Girl Scouts. In junior high school, she played the flute in band. And then, she was in 10th grade when she went missing. So in 9th grade, she didn't want to do marching band. So she switched from band over to choir, and she absolutely loved it. She had a beautiful voice, and she would sing all the time, but if she saw you stop and pay attention to her singing, she would stop singing because she was shy. A lot of her friends would describe her as being outgoing, but from my perspective, she was shy. She kind of like me, she didn't like to be pointed out or the center of attention. And I would say her passion besides singing was her art. And just art and music. And she would combine that sometimes. She would draw. I have some pictures. So she would draw pictures about Green Day all the time. Green Day was her favorite. I know it's probably going to be backwards, but she liked.
A little bit. Yeah, hold it down a little bit because it's got a little bit of a glare.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
with
the shadow.
Shade.
Oh, that's so cool. And then she has like the lyrics on there.
Yeah. So she loved to, she has journals and journals. She was an avid journalist ever since elementary school. And she would write down lyrics from her favorite songs. Like you guys remember Across the Universe?
The movie.
Yes. So she watched that movie over and over and over, and she wrote down every single song. She had the CD and would play it all the time. Here's another one of her favorites. I'm sure y'all will recognize this.
Oh, yes, I do. That is so awesome. She drew that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Paramore. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
artist.
She drew it with pen.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if you can see the detail.
She was so good at drawing and capturing faces, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. She did love to do faces. One of her art projects was a self-portrait.
Wow.
Look at that.
That is incredible. I hope you guys are watching this on YouTube because it is absolutely amazing.
This is one of her photos that, when you go to Olin Mills or Sears or whatever and take photos. This is a photo of her.
Oh
and
gosh,
she would always sign it. See right down there.
So cute. Yes. What an amazing artist.
And, I mentioned that she liked to write down lyrics. Well, one of her favorite snacks was Pop-Tarts. Mm-hmm. So she drew a Pop-Tart and she wrote down all the ingredients.
That's so funny.
See her sense of humor, her love for music and art and theater and band. She did so many amazing things.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
And many girls in that age too, they do become a little alternative. My daughter is actually exactly the same age as Allie. She's in 10th grade. And she has really between 9th and 10th grade, it's kind of when they become in their own, they kind of separate from their parents. They want to be, with their friends. And so I can see my daughter also too everybody says she is just the life of the party. And I'm like, really? 'Cause at home, she's
it's we don't see that side.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about her friends and her boyfriend really quick. So during her 9th and 10th grade year, did she start changing friend groups, or did she get involved with people that were a little bit on the edgier side? How would you describe that part of her life?
Well, I think she's always been, I guess if you have the jocks and you have the smart people and then the nerdy people and then you have the rejects. I think her crowd has always been the rejects because I think in the movie somewhere they described him as, I think in the Breakfast Club, that, they don't care who they're friends with. They're friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I would describe Allie and her choice of friends, that she was just friends with everybody.
She was friends
And
with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And like Miss Jo said, all different types of girls, boys, races, like Miss Jo saying, some of the jocks because she played sports, the art kids and the theater kids because she was involved in that, choir, and then the music kids. So like Miss Jo said, because Allie's personality was eclectic, after speaking to any friend that I could find, 15 years later, no one had a single bad thing to say about Allie. Like, that Allie was, she was just such a cool cucumber, go with the flow type of, she would never, she would stand up for what she believed for, but she was never, in trouble at school or pushing boundary. You know what I mean? And even her friends to this day, I mean, they still advocate. And throughout this last year, her friends, text like, do you guys have anything new? And so they're still very involved in wanting to know what happened to their friend as well, which I think shows the type of friendships that Allie was able to make.
Yeah. And she had a boyfriend. And how long had she had this particular, we're just going to call him, are we calling him X? Is that what we're calling the boyfriend, Anna?
Well, his name was DJ.
Yeah.
Okay.
DJ. Yeah, DJ was a very new relationship. So Allie went missing on a Monday, and DJ was over the weekend before that Monday, and he was teaching Allie to ride a skateboard, and I would fix some food, and they were watching TV and playing video games, and just the typical typical teenagers. Yeah.
And how old was he? The same age?
Hold of her that afternoon as well. DJ tried getting a hold of Allie to make sure that he was like, hey, did you pick up a shift? Like, kind of, will you let me know? Because he had to stay after school for choir that day. So he was also, I think he also, when he gets home from choir practice and his parents get home from work and Allie should be getting home from work, he hasn't heard from her either, and he starts to become worried.
Okay. All right. So she had texted or called somebody in the last moments of when we know her phone was on to her phone was turned off. And this person is not somebody that she was dating, but somebody that she had some sort of run-in with, correct?
Well, it was her friend. Her friend. And they had, sorry, little bug. So they had been hanging out for probably most of the school year. He was in the same grade, but he was either held back or maybe flunked a grade because he was already old enough to drive and had a vehicle. And it was the last person that she had texted. And when he was interviewed, he said that she contacted him to see what he was doing after school and if he wanted to hang out that evening.
Okay. And let's talk about him for one more second. He had texted her. Okay, so first I want to go back. When you said he was, did he talk to the investigator, like the private investigator, or did he actually speak with a law enforcement agency?
Well, John had actually gone to his house, and his father answered the door. And my understanding, it was a very brief, rude conversation. And then it was law enforcement, I believe, that basically said what the conversation was about, the text conversation.
Okay. So
So
do
they
you
were
know
able
if
to give you
they...
some context into what those last few messages said.
Right, because AT&T, although I was able to print out the entire phone records for the month for her phone, AT&T does not back up their data. So what we had to go by was a phone number, an in and out, and then a timestamp.
Yeah, you can't see message, but like this is kind of what it looks like. It's just like text,
Yeah, I
text,
remember
text.
those.
You know what I mean? But
Right.
it doesn't have the
Yes.
Yeah.
context. It just has the timestamp. And then if she sent a bigger file, like what, you could tell if she sent like a picture or something. Or back then, like accidentally logged onto the internet, because you know that in 2010 that wasn't part of your normal plan. It cost money to,
Right.
yeah, send pictures,
And
log onto the internet.
and is this the same guy that she had written about in her journal?
Yes. Well,
Okay, so
Allie was a very avid journaler.
yes.
And yeah, she wrote about her love life. Yes.
Okay, so she liked this guy even though she had another boyfriend, which is totally typical teenager thing to do.
Yes.
But in her journal, she writes, I can't stop thinking about what I did to, let's just call him X, the other day. I totally regret ever hitting him, but he did deserve it in a way. But he's so sweet. He just doesn't know it, which to me seems like he's not really sweet. But Allie being so kind and liking everybody, she's like, I just got to get this guy's sweet side out of him. That's what I kind of read into her journal post. And then she goes on to, he was sweet enough to not hurt me, to not kill me on the spot. He would have killed me in a heartbeat, but no, he didn't. So that is an alarming journal entry.
It is. So a little bit about Allie's journaling. So the homicide department, they took several of Allie's journals and won't give them back. So I don't know. I haven't been able to read those, but from the ones that I have, Allie would even write about me, which was fine. I'm her mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some of the entries that she wrote about were a little fabricated. Not by much, but it's hard to tell looking at the past writings, because, okay, so let me back up just a little bit more. So, Allie, she liked to write in those typical black,
Like a composition
Composite.
book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Composite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a couple of weeks after Allie went missing, and investigators came and they were looking around in her room, and they found a spiral notebook. And the only thing written in it was a runaway note. And I have doubts about, if it was actually Allie that wrote that, because the handwriting was completely different. It was not in one of her journals. It was just in a random spiral notebook, shoved on a shelf with some of her regular reading books. And, so I think that when law enforcement found that, that's really why the runaway label stuck to her. Even though they let us look at it, and, I even pointed out that it didn't look like Allie's typical handwriting. It was too neat.
I was gonna
Um,
say she has like very I know I showed you like a little part of it, but she wrote in this like tight cursive. You know what I mean? So like her
Yeah, and it
handwriting is
wasn't that.
pretty easy to yeah. She actually had beautiful handwriting, but like when we said when she was journaling, she normally wrote fairly quickly. You know, you can see in her where she kind of and like, you know.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So this was very laid out and very very neatly spelled out. So I don't want to call Allie a liar or anything. But the some of the entries in the journal, especially the ones about me that I know are not accurate. Um,
So I talked to a psychologist recently, if this makes you feel any better.
mhm.
And she was telling me about how kids that have very visual minds sometimes will, things don't actually happen, but their minds form some sort of memory. And because they're so visual, that even if that she's mad at you or something happened, this whole different thing develops in their mind, and they really believe it to be true. So I can see how Allie is very, she's very artsy, she's very visual. And so I think that these things that she's probably writing down on paper are a little bit more elaborate than what was happening. And just also having a 10th grader, for some reason they don't like their moms right now. Like,
No.
it is, everybody tells me that it's totally typical. So I'm just going to go with that. But it's just them pulling away from us as little individuals. But
Yes, I agree.
yeah,
Hard though.
so don't, yeah, so that I cannot imagine reading that, Joanne, and I do not think, that there is one piece of thing that she did not love you. She definitely did. So that is not, but I can see what you mean. Like maybe, he didn't really want to kill her, but she's
Right.
just kind of going a little bit dramatic, let's just say.
Well, and like also
Yes.
she was
But
also like really into Twilight and like how you're saying, kind of mixing this
oh yeah,
fantasy romanticized. And I'm also like I've dealt with a lot of cases where we come across people leaving notes or finding journals, during the police investigation. And in my opinion, both of you are saying, you have to take this with a grain of salt because what's the first thing that a therapist, if you go to a therapist for mental health, like what's the first thing they're going to tell you to do? Like journal, write down
journal,
your
right?
feelings. And then the police
Yes.
will use it against you if anything ever negative happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And just
That's true.
because they're labeling, even if they found this runaway note, and even if it truly Allie did write it, there is still a 16-year-old out on the streets that is not protected. The police need to find her and bring her back to her parents because
That's right.
just because if she ran away on her own will doesn't mean that she knows the dangers that are out there in Precinct 4 of Harris County. You know what I
Right.
Well,
mean?
the
So
other
I could
thing,
have a whole podcast on
yeah,
that subject.
Yeah.
yes. So that, and by the way, if we just look at what happened, she gets off the bus and her phone immediately turns off. That is not a runaway situation. That
And her
is,
phone
Mm-mm.
did
and
not
she never,
die. Like the
and
battery
yes,
was
her
removed
phone
or the
was,
phone was crushed. Yeah.
yes, her phone was destroyed in some which way, never turned back on, and there was never a call or text message after that. So
And we've
whoever
never
took
found the phone.
Allie and never found the phone,
It's never
never
been
found
found.
Well,
any
we've never
piece
found anything.
Yeah, we've never
of,
found a piece of clothing, her backpack, a shoe. Like, unfortunately, there's like when we say Allie Bennett vanished into thin air. In this case, it's true because there's no electronic stuff coming through, no physical evidence coming through. I mean, really, it's like she vanished into thin air.
now on that AT&T document that you got, there were a couple records showing some interesting numbers, like something from burner phones, and some prostitution solicitation, some things like that, that were probably pretty alarming to see. I mean, did you call? Is that how you knew? Because you called to see? And
Because
how?
Miss Joe had given us at least the phone number, like I said, the content of the messages, but we could still look at the timestamps. And we figured out that at this time, again, as we know growing up in this day and age, the girls were talking to older men on what they thought,
Yes.
or kids their age on like AOL or chat
Yep.
roulette.
AIM.
And
Right.
again, guilty as charged. Like I did it, me and my sister did it. However, I think that maybe Allie got too close, or because she was so trusting. And also, I have not been able to fully, I don't think anybody's ever been able to fully exclude that Allie may have kind of gotten into this like modeling, like, oh, like send us some pictures and you could be a
Oh yeah.
model and that kind of thing, like the modeling scam.
Yes.
Because that
That's real.
afternoon,
Yes.
yeah, very real. That afternoon, she sent 8 photos that I believe, me and Joe believe we know what those last 8 photos were, because her and her girlfriend had done like a glamour, fun shoot. Like, again, like we all used to do as teenagers in the woods, and had put on beautiful makeup and clothing, and had taken those pictures recently, and 8 of them they had like decided that they liked. And so, because those 8 photos were sent after Allie's lunch hour before she'd get on the bus, I'm wondering if she didn't ask said person, who we know was the last person to text her and potentially have picked her up, if maybe she was asking for a ride to said modeling shoot or agency or whatever, So we haven't been able to rule that angle out.
Anna, did you find those numbers and know that after 15 years, or was this something that the police looked into?
No, so the first PI that, and I think we'll get into her, Amber, she's the one that took the Lowitzer or did the Ohio search. And I'm glad that they did that, because A, we found out that Allie wasn't in CODIS, and B, I think it was a lead, because even in my investigation and looking back through Allie's records, there were a lot of numbers coming out of the Ohio region. So I think it was a good lead to track down and to say, okay, we followed it and there wasn't anything there besides now the fact that the family knows that CODIS wasn't ever updated, which again was a positive moving forward, that we didn't that they didn't know that they needed. But what was the original question?
If the police did the police find out that these were burner phones and this
Whatever
and this, or was this
investigation the police did into the phone records, we have no idea. So I went back through my software and pulled said numbers, and it's pretty easy to tell a burner phone number apart from like somebody's regular, Like if you pull up my phone number, you're going to see all of my normal stuff. A burner phone is just blank. Like there's nothing there.
So
we were
you
able
guys,
to find
this,
some of them were,
this is 15 years later. You want
and
to
we're just now figuring out or making it publicly known that she was contacting burner phones. But 15 years ago, a 16-year-old wouldn't have known what the difference between burner phones and like these online scams were new. I mean, I went to, luckily my parents were with me, but I went to a modeling tryout, and it was so scammy that of course I'm like, oh, my parents won't let me do this. But like now looking back, I'm like, oh my goodness, thank goodness my parents, caught on to all those red flags, because it was a big thing, I think, in 2010. I was just graduating from high school, and I also talked to several of Allie's friends who said they had been, accosted at the mall for said modeling stuff. So we knew this was happening in this area and at the mall that Allie's friends hung out at, that several of them had been, asked if they wanted to model and to do headshots and stuff like that. And we also found from one other female, I can't remember if she lived in the neighborhood or she was friends with Allie or both, that actually got a flyer in the mail for said modeling, for a modeling audition. And she said, it sticks out in my brain because she said, again, at that time, I really wanted to do it. And my mom was like, heck no, girl. No, no, no.
Yeah. And again, that's another theory.
Right. I mean,
And
we
I
only
feel
have
like-
theories at this point, but we have this male that she had texted last. We know that. And where is he now?
He lives in another state right now.
Actually,
And-
most of the boys that were connected around this no longer live in the state of Texas, and some of them even left the state right after Allie disappeared.
Even before they turned 18 or...
I believe in one case,
I don't know.
I think, sorry, but AW, we can edit that. I think he went to Ohio. He did not graduate at spring. He left weeks after Allie.
Well, there was one friend on the bus. Well, he says he was on the bus, but the images from the photos of the bus did not capture him on the bus. He later told one of my private investigators that Allie was having trouble with her phone, and he tried to fix her phone on the bus. We never saw that he was on the bus that day. We learned that he was getting in trouble and had been sent to one of those teenager, like boot camp type of.
Yeah, like a rehab boot camp place.
Yeah, like an alternative school program
Yes.
or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think after that, he was around for a while because I would see him walking around. And then went out of state to live with family members.
Okay.
And are you okay with us saying that his either father or stepfather was a police officer through Harris County?
Through Houston. Yeah.
Houston.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Harris County, and then Houston has its own city.
Yeah.
Harris County is extremely, like I said, difficult to navigate their legal precincts versus the county versus if you're in city limits. Yeah. So I think, Tabitha, let's make sure we connect that the same guy, X, who she wrote about in her journal, is the same last phone number that comes into her phone, okay? That's the same person that we're talking about. Then this AW that we were just talking about, because the CCTV footage did not pick Allie, or did not pick him up on Allie's bus, because we have, and I'm going to see if I can pull up at least a picture of it. We have Allie's, what she was wearing, her backpack, what she had on, a pair of Chuck Taylor Converse, and he is not on the bus, yet he told her last private investigator, and he also stated the same thing to me, that he had tried to fix Allie's phone that day.
Yeah,
I was just trying to wrap up about how we can put these people and then started the subject.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just go back really quick to, I want to just make sure we got X is the gentleman that sent, or that Allie was saying, the journal entry. And he's also the person that she texted last that we know. I mean, that's actually fact, because we have the phone records, that is the last person that she texted right before she got off the bus. And then we have somebody who says that, let's say AW, who says that he was on the bus with her. However, CCTV footage does not show him on the bus. Oh, not even near Allie. If you are watching on YouTube, you can see the picture, the CCTV
Yeah,
footage
this is
picture
Allie's
of
CCTV
Allie.
footage. This is the last known anything we have of Allie. So you can clearly see she's wearing pretty unique pants. She's got her backpack on, and we know she was wearing her Converse Chuck Taylors that day.
And
So
like
we
a
have a
zip up
pretty good
sweatshirt.
picture of what she
Yeah.
was wearing and had with her at the time of her disappearance, which was good.
And AW says something about trying to fix her phone, and maybe even says he tried to take the SIM card out of her phone,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
interesting piece of data, that a little nugget that he would give to you. And when I'm talking, it's hard to imagine that this is not law enforcement getting this information. These are the parents, the private investigators, and now Anna, who comes in 15 years later to try to give some answers because we have a failed system. I mean, clearly this is a failed system in a place that we haven't even gotten to, that Spring, Texas, Houston in general, is a huge hub for sex trafficking. It is probably one of the largest in our country. And
It is, statistically.
And so we have a problem here that is really getting swept under the rug. And we cannot just say it's a runaway teen. That is absolutely not how they should have taken this case. They should have dove right in. And I feel that had they dove right in, they could have pulled records. They could have looked at these people's phones. They could have figured out where she was. Did she get picked up by somebody that she knows? Did she get picked up by one of these guys? Was one of her friends kind of coerced into, I don't know, selling Allie to somebody? You know, that happens.
Yeah.
Young males are being paid to bring young females to bad people.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like it takes place in Houston more. Like, we have so many case studies of this happening in Houston, between like the Dean Coral and the Texas Killing Fields, and which is where the Laura Recovery Center comes in. So Houston is known for having a systematic issue here with this. You know what I mean? This isn't some mind-blowing thing we're telling you guys. Like, it has been
Right.
known that Harris County is just, I would say, not at the top of their game for handling cases specifically like this.
Right.
Teenage girls or women who go missing in general, I would
Right.
say. Is
Well,
not
like
their
these-
top priority.
I was just going to mention that, like, on the news today, they talk about the bodies being pulled out of the bayou. How there's been, it was either 13 or 15 recently. And, you know, there's rumors swarming around, you know, that there's a serial killer in Houston, and you know, on social media. And then the mayor gets on the TV today saying, no, it's not a serial killer, you know, but it's like all these bodies being pulled out of the bayou. I know that has nothing to do with Allie's case that we know of, but because we don't have this hard evidence yet exactly as to what happened to Allie, there are endless possibilities as to what could have happened.
Now,
I think
there's
going back
another.
to Tabitha, like you said, if the police would have taken this case and like the first 48 hours, as we like to believe on
That's
TV,
crucial.
they would have
Right.
immediately solved this. Like, this is such a solvable case, in my opinion. You're dealing with high school students,
Yeah.
you know, who don't know how to cover their tracks on cell phones and stuff yet. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it wouldn't have been that hard for the police to go talk to some of these kids. And even when I stepped in 15 years later, some of Allie's closest friends had told me, I've never been contacted by Harris County, by Houston, by any other investigator. You're the first person to call me in the last 15 years and ask me about Allie, even though I had school with her every day for the last 4 years. And I was
Wow.
like, are you joking? And then these poor girls that I started talking to that were schoolmates of Allie's, they start going into their own terrible stories about being attempted kidnapped. Some of them were grabbed off the street and were rescued and taken back home. The first PI that Miss Joe hired to try and find Allie on the sex trafficking angle brought home like 2 or 3 other girls while looking for Allie.
Wow.
I mean, this case is so deep, and when you get into those depths, the depravity of it could make you sick.
The two guys that we're talking about, they're friends, AW and X. They were buddies. And their futures, which are now, let's just say nowadays, what do their records look like?
One of them has kept a completely, almost, in my opinion, a too clean, like he's never gotten caught speeding, never gotten pulled over without a seatbelt or a driver's license. Like, he doesn't even have a small infraction. Although, when you look at his other social media profiles, he's clearly been in an active addiction for the last 10 or so years. So that's kind of strange in my mind that he's not catching any charges. However, the other gentleman that moved to, I hate to call him a gentleman, the other man that moved up to Ohio, he does seem to have a pretty lengthy record that shows breaking and entering, violence, theft, those
And
things.
was this the guy that was the journal entry guy?
No.
No,
he was the friend on the bus.
And not only did AW, but also X, both of their parents have an into law enforcement there in Harris County.
Okay. Now, there's another angle that you looked into also, and that was there was a sex offender living just houses down from you, Joanne, at the time. But you had no idea because he didn't register his new or newer address, correct?
Yes.
Correct. And he got in trouble for that years after they investigated Allie. So again, it's sometimes like hindsight is 2020, and we can't fault Harris County for this because they didn't know he was there. So
Right. No one knew he was there, but it is said that he or somebody, it was a rental house, but they had poured some concrete outside of the patio not long after Allie disappeared. Now, has anybody ever looked into that poured concrete, taken any kind of mechanics to see if there could be bones, something under human remains?
No, nobody has looked at it. And as a matter of fact, I kept Allie's room untouched for more than 10 years. Same carpet, all of her clothes in the closet and drawers, and not one detective came to the house and took DNA, fingerprints, looked at anything, nothing. I replaced the carpet in my entire house except for Allie's room, hoping and waiting.
Do we have her DNA on, do they have it at all? They have it now.
Yeah, after they lost it twice. Yeah.
I mean, you have really just, they have screwed you one way to the next way to the next. So,
oh yeah. And even better, when the homicide department took over the case, they investigated us as the family. We were, interrogated and polygraphed and, accused and all kinds of stuff. And they say it's standard procedure.
And you want
which
to say,
I agree, it is standard.
It is standard, but they didn't look at anybody else.
I was going to say, it should be the first thing that you can say, look, I don't think this is the family. We need to start moving on to these other leads that we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When Miss Joe
this,
told me that she had the entire carpet, like they were doing renovations in her home, and she didn't want to pull up Allie's carpet yet, I cried. Like, I'm like, can you imagine saving the carpet in your child's room, hoping somebody will come take it and maybe get something out of it?
Yeah.
And then the day that she finally decided to pull it out and throw it away.
no, I
Because
can't
nobody would
imagine,
take it.
Joanne. I can't imagine. I can't even, I want to go over there and just like shake the investigators because it's just not fair.
You know what? We've gone through so many homicide detectives with so many different personalities. But until Anna has done her recent work and turned it in, I have not had a relationship with law enforcement at all until recently because of Anna.
And it's going to take,
I'm kind of like a bulldog. If I get my teeth in
Yes.
something, I was gonna go. Yeah, I was gonna go. As long as
Shake
Miss
'em for
Joe
me.
approved, I was gonna keep going forward until somebody told me to stop. You know, to stop. And so, like I said, and I had a small team backing me, but I did most of tracking people down and most of the interviews and talking to people that went to school with Allie or people that worked at the burger barn with her and choir or whatever their connection to Allie was. And I forgot what I was going to say again, but
That's okay. I mean, it takes somebody
it
that
takes
is
a
just,
lot of, well, and nowadays, luckily, we have the resources to be able to track people down fairly. Like, there are
Right.
still phone numbers in Allie's records 15 years ago where I was able to still come full circle and find those people and connect them
Yeah.
back all again and be able to contact them thanks to just even, you know, technology like Facebook. You know, like these people have continued to live their lives and they have public profiles, and so we are able to find just a lot of people through Facebook and, you know, fairly simple methods. Like, you know, we weren't out in the dark like hunting people down. Like, it wasn't really that hard to find people. And as I stated, all of Allie's friends wanted to talk to me. They're like, I've been waiting 15 years for somebody to call me and ask me about Allie. And in that same vein, something that like touched my heart and I really wanted to convey to Miss Joe was that I had so many girls, like I said, when I started talking and hearing their specific stories about their assaults or men that they had been in relationships with, they had told me like that night I thought I was gonna die and I thought about Allie and I got like my ass out of there. Or that day on the news, I happened to see Miss Joe talking about Allie, and I decided to not go to that party that night because I had a gut feeling about it. So to take some of those anecdotal stories and give that back to Miss Joe, like Allie's saved other women's lives is pretty, like in my mind, I just feel like Allie is this little angel that watches over all of us and her friends and her girlfriends and even the relationship, like we said, you know, of course, Allie was 16. Those teenage years can be tough, but the relationship that you guys had was so strong and amazing. I mean, you guys did movies and had, you know, you guys loved all of the Nightmare Before Christmas and Harry Potter stuff, and you guys just had such like a mother-daughter bond that I feel fortunate has rubbed off on me a little bit because I feel like we really bonded over these last few years. And I feel like that's why I aim more towards family advocacy because I can't not let a case get personal for me. And I've learned that, especially in Allie's case. Like,
well, I can imagine when you dive into someone's personal lives, you know,
and
you're either going to love them or hate them.
Connect you, like music and these things that we're so passionate about just as humans. And and I will say that Allie will never be forgotten. Her friends talk about her and post about her daily. I mean, she's on my mind every day, and I hope when we get answers, I can get her little scribbled, her Allie, and she
Oh,
signed it with a heart above her eye. So I want to
that's
get
so
it right
cute.
here for her. Hopefully, when we
You
get
know,
answers. So.
I know that there are answers out there. We all know that there are probably multiple people that know exactly what happened to Allie.
Yes, we believe
It
that.
is just going to take them to come forward, to not be scared, to they can come forward anonymously if they want. There are a lot, even if they were part of the problem, there is a way that you can work with the police, you can work with the families to make sure that you're covered because you're the one that came forward and told the story. And so, that's what we're looking for here. We're looking for
Well,
some
and
sort of answer, some sort of justice for
there's a reward
Miss
to
Joe.
this day, an active reward still for information leading to an arrest in Allie's case. So it's never too late to come forward.
Yeah.
And I do
And
believe, like Tabitha said, I think there was a couple of men that were directly involved, but there's got to be other people that know or have information that could help solve this case.
I want to just emphasize again, when I met you two at CrimeCon, you came by my table, you left a little picture of Allie on my table, and I left it there the entire time, just looking at her beautiful eyes. And then when I saw you guys again around, I just, I see I've been to a lot of these crime cons now, and there are a lot of people just like you in the same situation looking for answers for their missing loved ones. But I felt this very special connection to you. And I know that there are answers out there for you. I know in your mom heart, Joanne, you think that Allie is a little angel at this point. And I feel her presence also. And I do think that you're right, Anna, that she is helping people. She's going to help a lot of people just by us talking about this, because people are going to hear it and they're going to know, like, you always have to be diligent. And so she's definitely never forgotten, and she's a really strong light still in this world. Her energy will never leave.
Well, I have listened to your podcast, and I love the way you tell stories and also advocate for cases like this. And at CrimeCon, you also were able to introduce us to the Petito family, and we were able to talk to Jason Landry's family. And I don't think people understand at CrimeCon. I think some people think it's like more entertainment, but there are really some great advocates, some great connections, and new ideas of what to do if you feel stuck. Because I think Miss Joe, over those last year or two working with her, I think she felt like she was at like an impasse, like what?
Yeah.
I mean, I've hired investigators. I've gone to precinct 4, to homicide, to this, to that. And so we were able to put together a new, like I said, list of alternative suspects. And that all got handed over to actually 2 agencies that work in that, to get it both on a state side and even maybe push it into a more federal investigation.
So I want to say that this year was my first crime con, and I had no idea what to expect. But meeting you and some of the other content creators, you guys are just like we are, normal people that, want people to listen to them. And it means a lot to me And I know a lot of the other families that you can help be our voice, if that makes any sense, because you know, and I've said this for years, that besides having a missing child, one of the worst feelings in the world is feel like nobody's listening to you.
Yeah.
So it was very nice meeting you.
Yes.
And and I'm so appreciative of what you're doing, not just for Allie, but the other families too.
Yes. And
So
you,
thank you.
Joanne, I mean, you are helping other families too. Allie's helping other families. Anna, you are a true joy. I mean, I don't know how you two met, but I'm glad
TikTok.
you did.
TikTok.
Wow.
Yeah, and we do a lot of advocating through there.
Yeah.
So we'll put our stuff at the end, but real quick, do you guys want to do, I know we kind of like went all over the place. Do you want to do like a quick couple minute
A wrap up.
summary
Yeah.
of Allie's
Yeah.
story and then read maybe the
Yes.
conclusion in our script, because I think that'll
Yes.
tie it in, and then we'll
Yeah.
thank each other and drop any, because I know you want to do Hope for Allie. We're hoping to get maybe a booth
Yes.
at CrimeCon, so I'll let Jo say whatever she wants about that.
Okay.
And you're going to Vegas, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I will be in Vegas unless I get on a show that I am applying for.
Ooh.
Oh, okay,
So I will
girl.
let you guys
Okay.
know if I get that. It's filming at the same time. So
Ooh.
that is like, if I get it, who knows? I mean, that I'm probably not going to get it, but if I
Well,
do,
I
will
hope
be
you
there.
do. I hope you do. But
Yeah.
I also hope to see you in Vegas. So
Yes.
whatever may be. will
Okay.
be.
So do you
Okay.
want me to read the final observations, that part?
Should we do like a quick, like, okay, so going back, Allie gets off the bus. Basically, nothing's
Yeah.
ever been found.
Okay.
Nothing on her thing. We've come up with a few suspects. We've turned a new investigation over. And now our goal is just like you're saying, to advocate, to be on podcasts, to do CrimeCon.
Yes.
And I also would love Miss Jo, when you hand it back over to her, to talk about like some of the missing people stuff that's more Texas centric. Like,
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the Southwest.
You talking about my missing person events?
I mean, if you want to talk about that,
Or are you talking about some of the families that
I more
that I
meant like what was like your Southwest advocacy group that you invited to the Landrys to join, some of those events and donations that if you want to be an advocate or donate for Allie, that you can go.
Oh, it's not really it's just an event for the families. It's not really, I mean, an
Yeah, I'd
advocacy
love for you to still say
group.
that though, because like we said, now like the Landrys live down there, a lot of these cases at CrimeCon are all coming out of this kind of same
Yeah, it's so true.
centralized area. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. So I know we kind of got all over the place with Allie's case because it really is kind of all over the place. But we are, I feel like you guys have done a really good job of compiling as much information as you have to give it to investigators that hopefully now will give it some thought. So Allie gets off the school bus, and right before she does, she texts X a couple times. We know that AW may or may not have been on that bus. We don't think he was. However, he did say that he had messed with Allie's phone somehow that day. She never shows up to work. We know that because we would have seen her on that CCTV footage walking past the gas station. And so we don't see that. Her phone is turned off, destroyed, never found again, almost immediately after she gets off that bus. We have the sex offender that lived down the street that poured some concrete. I would love to look into that just to, say that, cross him off the list or not,
I can say we did go in like as best we could on some Google stuff and had somebody that builds patios and concrete look at it and what they thought it was composed out of. But we, like you said, to date, we have not been able to scan that patio forensically.
Okay. And she did send 8 pictures, modeling photos that day to, who knows, some sort of modeling thing. And we've all been there. I did the same thing. I somehow walked to some really shady modeling thing as well. So I think it's just one of those things that people get teenagers very excited, and it's an easy trap to fall in. So that one also is, something that needs to be looked into.
Yeah, we have not been able to cross that off completely yet. Or
Right.
even if it was just a bait, to have her take the bait to get in said car and go meet said person. if you
Right.
will.
And we have these weird burner phone number situation, but we know that she's a typical teenager. She's talking on AOL. She's talking on these new platforms that have formed, in the early 2000s up to 2010, where there was a lot of communication going on. And I think that just knowing how dangerous the internet still was at that point, it still was very early on where we're like, oh my gosh, there's actually people that are pretending that there's somebody else and they're really a 65-year-old dude looking for a teenage girl. So we have that angle also. And the, AW and X, I really would like to look into more. But all these clues should have been looked at 15 years ago. And so really the system failed you, Joanne, and Harris County in general is a very under-resourced county. It's one of the largest counties in Texas, and it has the highest rate of sex trafficking, missing children, and violent crimes. So we believe, and you believe, that this is part of the problem. I mean, we didn't even get into kind of her school situation and that school in general where she was going, Spring High School, that had its own issues of, really exploiting children and having teachers that were having relations with kids and people sweeping things under the rugs and things were not checked out. So that is truly the issue that we're having, and law enforcement not protecting our kids. And
And
so,
I hate to point the finger at just Harris County. Like I said, they're under
oh
resourced,
yeah,
they're
no,
understaffed.
it's
I hate pointing the finger directly at Spring High. It was like we're saying systematic. And
right.
how can we improvise or improve said system when the general public doesn't know that these problems are even existing down there. So that's
Yes.
another focus is how do we keep our kids safe in said situations where there is systematic failure? What can we do as parents,
Right.
And as we said, Miss Joe was working. She's got, Allie had an older brother that was graduating. By all accounts, Miss Joe was a fantastic mother. She paid attention to Allie. She knew what was going on in Allie's life. And anybody who said anything negative about Miss Joe, well, I know
They can
personally
take a hike.
this
Yeah.
case wouldn't even still be being talked about if this woman hadn't have advocated the way that she has. And her love and advocacy for Allie is also a lesson in itself for the love of a mother wanting to find a simple answer,
And you are
I feel
still
like I could do a whole, yeah, I feel like I could do a whole episode on just what the families have to go through to advocate for themselves, because it's a lot.
And like, luckily she had the Laura Recovery Center, and that's kind of what we hope. You know, if there's a family in Harris County that doesn't know what to do right now, reach out to Kitchen Table Research. We can help you get on a path, and we'll give you guys all of our info before we sign off. But you know, if you are a parent that's in Miss Jo's situation, maybe we can help you get resources faster than Harris County can. So that would also be a goal of ours.
Right. Okay. And you are advocating for Allie. You are, tell us what you're doing now, Joanne.
Well, I continue to have my missing person events, here locally. So Allie's been missing for 15 years, and for 14 years, I've been, doing Houston Missing Persons Day, as close to Allie's birthday as I can. And, this past weekend, in Houston, we had National Day of Remembrance. And I remember going for the first time to this event and being really moved, you know, because it's for the parents and families of murder victims. And I felt a little out of place, and because I don't know, and especially back then, you know, I didn't know if Allie was a victim like that or not, or if she was just a missing person. And so that's what gave me the idea to create Houston Missing Persons Day. And it's an event that happens every February, and it gives families of missing persons a chance to stand up in front of local media and social media and say whatever they want to, and not be censored, and versus an interview with local media, you know, where you're talking for 30 minutes, but you only get, you know, a little 30-second snip on the news.
I'm sure that Miss Jo is so thankful for you. I'm thankful for you. We're all thankful for you.
I'm thankful for
like
Ms.
you said,
Jo.
We are here.
It is a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. We are all here to find justice, right? We're finding answers. People ask me all the time why I do what I do. And really that's why. I mean, there's a lesson in every story that's told. And so I try to find those lessons. The missing persons cases are really a struggle for me because there's no answers, and it's so incredibly heartbreaking. And researching it, I mean, you know it, you live it, and so you know how hard it is. And so but they're the most important because we need the answers. We need answers for you. We need answers for Allie, and we know people know the answer, and that's the hardest part, is just getting those people to talk. So where can they go to talk? Where can they go to give information, to get the reward? Do you have a number? Where do you want them to go, Joanne?
Well, I used to say just contact me, because, and that has changed, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So I used to say just contact me. You can find me, well, I have a website, it's alexandrialowitzer.com. I do have a contact button on there. If you just research Hope for Allie, and it's ALI, that you pretty much find me on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube. But you can also contact Harris County Homicide now, thanks to Anna and the team that did all this research. I have a connection with them now. Because I didn't used to, because people would call them and they would say, "Who's Allie Lowitzer?" So,
Oh my gosh. Wow.
yeah.
Okay, well, we're moving to better directions. I feel that this is really going to be a good thing for Allie and for you. So you can now contact the homicide department in Harris County. And I'm sure you can still contact Miss Joe because she, is Allie's biggest advocate.
I was going to say, if you want to follow Kitchen Table Research,
Yes.
it's across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I do a lot of shorter form content on TikTok, but we do advocate for families on Kitchen Table Research, which you can find on Spotify and all of that as well. So I'm pretty easy to find out there as well, and we will be in Vegas for CrimeCon 2026. So that is
Great.
our next goal.
And I always try to tell people too that if you haven't gone to CrimeCon, it is really different than you think it's going to be. It is. It really is.
I think you were pleasantly surprised.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was totally surprised. Yes. And I'm actually excited to go next year. And I have some other families that want to share a booth. And, excuse me, I've emailed CrimeCon to see if they may be able to help out some of us families. So that's what I'm hoping.
Okay, great. And then is there a way that people can donate to Allie's fund to help find her resources, anything like that? Do you have a GoFundMe, or do you have anything that we can ask people if they feel the need to donate to finding Allie?
I do have a donate button on our website.
Okay.
But I will be doing a GoFundMe to help with the CrimeCon expenses.
Right.
Because I do want to be able to have things to pass out and hand out to everybody that we meet. Flyers and buttons and stuff like that. So
yes, and you guys, it's not cheap to print.
No,
Trust me, it's not cheap to print.
It's way more expensive than somebody would assume it is.
Yeah.
And on that note, my goal is to get Miss Joe's link tree up for Allie for these specific donations here. So maybe by the time you publish this, I can give you that link and we can put it in the show notes.
We will do that. Okay. Well,
Okay.
I appreciate you guys sitting down with me and getting Allie's story out there. And I appreciate all of you that are listening and watching to also get Allie's story out there. If you live in the Spring area, the Houston area, Texas in general, and then far beyond that, it's good to be an advocate for the missing. And if you know people in law enforcement, talk about it, see what they're doing, and make sure that they know this should be top priority. I mean, really, it really should.
It's our children.
It's our children. That's right. So I thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
We thank you so much, Tabitha. You have been amazing, and honestly, you made the logistics of this project or process so easy, and everything went so smoothly, and we both just want to thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And having us on means so much to us as well, so we really do want to thank you.